Picking up from the chapter-breaking cliffhanger, chapter 24 begins on a explicit reference to meaningful silence. They lunched slowly and meditatively, with mute intervals between rushes of talk, for, the spell once broken, they had much to say, and yet moments when saying became the mere accompaniment to long duologues of silence. This is Archer and Olenska at their little beachside resort, having the first meaningful chat they've had in a year and a half or so. And it is awkward. They are brimming up with passion, supposedly, but they don't actually know how to talk to one another very well. Wharton is in this, I think, hinting at the kind of liminal space or interstitial spaces are more productive, perhaps, than actual speech. The so-called duologues of silence are the primary communication here. The progressive development of narrative, very rich in plot points, very breakneck speed almost of the melodrama. The dialogues are so fraught with back and forth and hidden accusations and frustrations, and this is all being pried apart, kind of as tectonic plates. And underneath you're getting this wellspring of existential angst of the characters, specifically Newland, who is coming to appreciate that so much of life is just performative, is just silly, and what is really authentic, what is really valuable, what is really significant to him is underneath in a kind of inchoate form. They talk. He's resentful. He's a little bitchy. She is world weary and tolerant. He bursts out, "Why don't you go back to Europe?" And she responds, "I believe it's because of you." And then she follows this with a statement that could be an aesthetic theory of Newland Archer. "At least," she continued, "it was you who made me understand that under the dullness there are things so fine and sensitive and delicate that even those I most cared for in my other life look cheap in comparison. I don't know how to explain myself." She drew together her troubled brows. "But it seems as if I'd never before understood with how much that is hard and shabby and base the most exquisite pleasures may be paid." Interesting. This shows a sense of gratitude that she feels towards Archer, somewhat justifies her feelings for him, because he's really not all that charming a guy sometimes. He's kind of a pain in the butt, honestly. It shows that love itself is a kind of art, and they are creating this art, living it. That has a touch of medievalism become romanticism, and is now metamorphosing from realism into modernism. This sense of the artificiality of their lives as a whole, how whatever is on the surface is false and hollow. And look again at that curious line, "I don't know how to explain myself." That again reference to the inability to articulate, the inability to express, the limitation of words and language, which is the stock in trade of the novelist, of course, the writer. So the art of the novel itself is being told is limited, is insufficient to expressing the fullness of life, which is somewhat antithetical to the realist ambitions of the now ending era. most of their talk is of very desperate love and her refraining from it and trying not to even talk about it. And he lashes out. You gave me the first glimpse of a real life, and then at the same moment, you asked me to go on with a sham one. It's beyond human enduring, that's all. Oh, don't say that when I'm enduring it, she burst out, her eyes filling. She says she won't go back to Europe for now upon one condition. I promise you, not as long as you hold out, not as long as we can look straight at each other like this. He dropped into his chair. What that answer really said was, if you lift a finger, I'll come, you'll drive me back to all the abominations you know of and all the temptations you half guess. He understood it as clearly as if she had uttered the words, and the thought kept him anchored to his side of the table in a kind of moved and sacred submission. Significantly, this is another example of reading, of interpretation. She says one thing, he gets another message. He intuits the truth within the surface words. This is the way of life for Newland Archer and for New York society and presumably the world at large. Archer is reading this implicit message in her warning about maintaining a behavioral standard. This is what he has been fighting against in his own life as he strives for some modicum of authenticity, of self-expression, of the ability to live a kind of ideal life, divorced from the hubbub of society. But he just can't quite break free. And hearing this from Olenska is her telling him, as he is trying to keep her from going back to Europe and living a life of abominations, which are all so very vague and, guessed at, mostly in his mind, she is essentially sending him back to a kind of parallel life of abominations, one of scrupulous propriety, but absolutely dead from a perspective of his soul.